Picture this scenario. You're 25 years old, sitting in your first real apartment, not the one you shared with 3 roommates where the bathroom door didn't lock, your own place. You just got your first serious job offer, $55,000 a year. After taxes, that's about $3,400 a month hitting your account, and for the first time in your life, you feel like you have money, real money. Not, can I afford ramen money, but I can actually go to dinner without checking my bank balance first. Money. So you make some decisions. Decisions that feel completely reasonable, maybe even responsible. You lease a car because you need reliable transportation. You upgrade your apartment because you're not a broke college kid anymore. You finally buy some decent furniture. You treat yourself because you've earned it. And at the time, these decisions feel like you're adulting correctly. You're building the life you're supposed to have. Flash forward 10 years, you're 35. You're making $95,000 now, almost double what you made at 25. But here's the thing that keeps you up at night. You have less money saved now than you did when you were making half as much. Your net worth is basically zero, maybe negative if we're being honest. Your friends from college who were making less money than you somehow have $100,000 saved and are buying houses. And you're sitting there wondering what the hell happened. How did you work for 10 years, earn almost $1 million, and have nothing to show for it? My name is Uncle Dan, and I spend way too much time thinking about the invisible financial traps that destroy wealth before it even has a chance to grow. If you're someone in your 20s or early 30s who feels like you should be further ahead than you are, or if you're watching friends somehow build wealth while you're treading water despite making good money, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Because today, we're breaking down the 5 most common money decisions people make at 25 that seem totally fine in the moment but end up costing them literal decades of financial progress. These aren't obvious mistakes like gambling or buying lottery tickets. These are decisions that society tells you are normal, maybe even smart, and that's what makes them so dangerous. Here's the thing about your mid-20s. You're at a critical inflection point that nobody properly explains to you. You've just entered your peak earning years. You're going to work for roughly the next 40 years. But the money you save in your 20s is worth exponentially more than the money you save in your 30s or 40s because of compound interest. Every dollar you invest at 25 becomes $88 by retirement at a 7% return. Every dollar you invest at 35 only becomes $38. Same dollar, same return, but one decision multiplies your money by 88 times and the other by 38 times. The difference is when you start. Your 20s aren't just another decade. They're the most valuable financial decade of your entire life, and most people squander it without even realizing it. So let's go through the 5 decisions, and I'm warning you right now, at least 2 of these are going to hit close to home. But that's the point. If this doesn't make you uncomfortable, you're probably not paying attention. Decision number 1, leasing the car. Let's start with the most common one, the one that feels the most justifiable. You're 25. You just got the job. Your old car from college is falling apart. The check engine light is permanently on. The air conditioning doesn't work. You're embarrassed to pick up dates in it. So you walk into a dealership and they show you the numbers. You can lease a brand new Honda Accord for $350 a month. That's it. $350? You're making $3,400 a month. This is less than 10% of your income. The salesperson tells you that leasing is actually smarter than buying because you'll always have a reliable car under warranty. You'll never have to deal with maintenance headaches, and you can upgrade every 3 years. It sounds responsible. It sounds like what adults do. So you sign. Here's what actually just happened. You locked yourself into paying $4,200 per year for a car you'll never own. And because leases are typically 3 years, you just committed to spending $2,600 with zero equity at the end. Then, when the lease ends, you don't have a car. So you lease again, another $2,600, then again and again. If you do this from age 25 to 35, that's $42,000 spent on cars with nothing to show for it. You paid the equivalent of a luxury car and you own nothing. But wait, it gets worse. That $350 a month? If you had taken that money and invested it instead in a simple S&P 500 index fund averaging 8% returns, by the time you're 35, you'd have $65,000, not $42,000, $65,000, because compound interest turned your consistent contributions into exponential growth. You didn't just lose the $42,000 you spent on leases. You lost the $65,000 that money could have become. The real cost of that decision wasn't $42,000. It was $107,000 in total opportunity cost. And here's the truly insidious part. After 10 years of leasing, you still need a car. So you have to keep leasing, or you have to finally buy one, which means you're starting from scratch at 35 when you should have had a paid-off car at 30 if you just bought a used one at 25. Compare that to the alternative. At 25, you buy a 3-year-old Honda Civic for $15,000. You finance it at 5% over 4 years. Your payment is $345 a month, basically the same as the lease. But at 29, the car is paid off. You own it. It's worth maybe $8,000 still. And now, instead of having a car payment, you take that $345 a month and invest it for the next 6 years until you're 35. By 35, you have a paid-off car worth $5,000 and $32,000 in investments. Total net worth from car decisions, $37,000. The person who leased, net worth, $0. This is the math of renting your life. Leasing isn't flexibility. It's a subscription model for a depreciating asset. You're paying for the privilege of never owning anything. And the car companies love it because they get to sell you the same car over and over while you pay for the depreciation every time. You're the perfect customer for them and the worst CFO for yourself. Decision number 2, renting the luxury apartment. Decision number 2 is the apartment. You're 25. You've been living in dumps your whole adult life. Shared bathrooms, sketchy neighborhoods, thin walls. You could hear your neighbor's entire phone conversation. Now you have a real job. You want to live like an adult, so you tour the nice apartment, the one with the in-unit washer and dryer, the gym in the building, the rooftop terrace, the granite countertops. It's $1,800 a month. That's about half your take-home pay, but the rule is you can spend up to 30% on housing, and you're doing a little more than that. But you'll get raises, right? You justify it. You deserve it. You sign the lease. Here's what you just did. You locked yourself into spending $21,600 per year on an asset you will never own. And because rent goes up every year, let's be conservative and say 3% annually. By year 10, you're paying $2,350 a month. Over those 10 years, you will have paid $241,000 in rent, $250,000 for the privilege of living in someone else's building. And at the end of it, you have 0 equity. You're back at square one looking for another rental. Meanwhile, your friend who decided to be uncomfortable for a few years, she rented the cheaper apartment for $1,000 a month. It's not as nice. The countertops are laminate. There's no gym. But it's safe, it's functional, and it saves her $700 a month. Over 10 years, that's $84,000 in savings. She takes that money, and at year 3, she has enough for a down payment on a small condo. She buys a $200,000 place with a $40,000 down payment, a 20% down payment she saved by living below her means. Her mortgage is $200 a month, which is actually less than what you're paying in rent by this point. She's building equity. By year 10, she's paid down $30,000 of principal. Her condo appreciated to $250,000. She's sitting on $120,000 in equity. You spent $241,000 and have nothing. She spent less, lived in a place she owned, and has $120,000 in net worth. The gap isn't $120,000. It's $241,000 plus the $120,000 she has, which means the decision to rent the luxury apartment instead of buying something modest cost you $361,000 in net worth over 10 years. And look, I know what you're going to say. Uncle Dan, housing markets are crazy. I can't afford to buy. And in some cities, you're right, but the decision isn't between luxury rental and buying. The decision is between luxury rental and modest rental. That $700 a month difference is the down payment you're choosing not to save. You're trading future equity for present comfort. And that trade might be worth it for some people, but you need to be honest that it's a choice, not a necessity. Decision number 3, not maxing out the 401k. At match decision number 3 is the one that makes me genuinely angry because it's free money that people are leaving on the table out of pure ignorance or short-term thinking. You start your job at 25. During onboarding, HR explains that the company offers a 401k with a 6% match. If you contribute 6% of your salary, they'll match it dollar for dollar. You're making $55,000. That means if you put in $3,300 per year, they'll add another $3,300 free money. Instant 100% return on investment. But you look at your paycheck and you see that contributing 6% drops your take-home by about $200 a month. You're already stretched thin with the car lease and the luxury apartment. You think, I'll start next year when I get a raise. Except next year comes, you have new expenses, and you still don't start. This continues for 5 years. By 30, you finally start contributing, but you lost 5 years of contributions and 5 years of employer match. Let's do the math. If you had maxed out the employer match from 25 to 35, you would have contributed $3,300 per year. The employer would have matched $3,300, and you'd have $600 going into your retirement account annually. Over 10 years, that's $66,000 in contributions. But with compound interest at 8%, by the time you're 35, that account is worth $99,000. You contributed $33,000 of your own money. Your employer gave you $33,000 in matching, and compound interest added another $33,000. You tripled your money, but you waited until 30, so you only got 5 years of contributions. You put in $16,500, your employer matched $16,500, and by 35, you have $39,000. You missed out on $60,000 by waiting 5 years. That's not $60,000 in missed contributions. That's $60,000 in total account value, and here's the part that should make you sick. That $60,000 gap at age 35 doesn't stay $60,000. By the time you're 65 and ready to retire, that $60,000 would have grown to $603,000 at 8% annual returns. You lost over $500,000 because you didn't start your 401k 5 years earlier. This is the power of early compound interest and the catastrophic cost of delay. The money you invest in your 20s does more work than the money you invest in your 40s, even if the dollar amounts are the same, because it has more time to compound. Every year you wait is a year of growth you can never get back. Decision number 4, financing the lifestyle upgrades. Decision number 4 is what I call the lifestyle upgrade spiral. You're 27 now. You've been working for a couple of years. You get a promotion. Your salary jumps from $55,000 to $68,000. That's a $13,000 raise. After taxes, it's about $800 more per month. And here's what happens. You immediately absorb that raise into your lifestyle. You move to an even nicer apartment. You upgrade your car lease to a luxury brand. You start eating out more, you buy nicer clothes, you book the European vacation, and at the end of the year, you look at your bank account and you've saved exactly $0 more than you did before the raise. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it's the silent killer of wealth accumulation. The problem isn't that you got a raise. The problem is that you let your expenses rise to meet your income instead of maintaining your previous lifestyle and saving the difference. If you had kept your expenses the same and invested that extra $800 a month by 35, you'd have $86,000 in investments from that one raise alone. But instead, you upgraded your life and your net worth stayed flat. You made more money, but you didn't get richer. You just got more expensive. And this pattern repeats every time you get a raise. At 30, you make $80,000 lifestyle upgrades. At 32, you make $95,000 more upgrades. By 35, you're making $100,000, but you're still living paycheck to paycheck because your expenses grew in lockstep with your income. The gap between your income and your expenses, the margin, never widened. You got on the hedonic treadmill and you never got off. Meanwhile, your friend who understood this kept his expenses the same when he got raises. He still lived in the modest apartment, he still drove the paid-off car, but every raise went straight into investments. By 35, he's living on $60,000 a year and banking $40,000 annually. His net worth is over $300,000. You're living on $95,000 a year and banking nothing. Your net worth is zero. Same career trajectory, same income progression, completely different financial outcomes. The difference was discipline at the moment of the raise. Decision number 5, not building an emergency fund first. And this brings us to decision number 5, which might be the most important and the most overlooked. Not building an emergency fund before doing literally anything else. You're 25. Everyone's telling you to invest in index funds, max out your Roth IRA, buy Bitcoin, invest in yourself. And all of that is good advice eventually. But if you don't have an emergency fund first, you're building a financial house on sand. Here's what happens. You start investing. You're putting $500 a month into your brokerage account. You're feeling good. You're building wealth. Then your car breaks down. $200 repair. You don't have $200 in cash because it's all invested. So you put it on a credit card at 22% interest. Or you sell your investments at a loss because the market is down. Or you take a hardship withdrawal from your 401k and pay penalties and taxes. One emergency just unraveled months of progress, and it gets worse. Without an emergency fund, you can't take risks. You can't leave the toxic job because you need the steady paycheck. You can't negotiate hard for a raise because you're terrified of being fired. You can't move to a cheaper apartment to save money because you don't have first and last month's rent plus security deposit sitting around. The lack of an emergency fund doesn't just cost you money on emergencies, it costs you opportunity and leverage. It traps you in suboptimal situations because you can't afford the transition cost to get somewhere better. The correct order of operations for someone at 25 is this. First, build a 1,000 mini emergency fund that handles most small crises. Then, max out your employer 401k match because it's free money. Then, pay off any high-interest debt, anything above 7%. Then build your emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of expenses. That's $10,000 to $20,000 for most people. Only after you've done all of that do you start investing in taxable accounts or worrying about individual stocks or crypto or whatever else people are hyping. This order matters because it builds a foundation. The emergency fund is the bedrock that prevents catastrophic setbacks. The 401k match is free money that you can't pass up. Paying off high-interest debt is a guaranteed return. And once those are handled, then you can invest aggressively. But most people skip the foundation and go straight to investing, and then one bad month destroys everything they built. They're trying to run before they can walk, and they fall flat on their face. Let me bring this all together, because I know this is heavy and probably uncomfortable if you've made these mistakes. The difference between financial success and failure in your 20s and 30s isn't about making a massive income. It's about making high-leverage decisions at critical moments. The The person who drives a modest car, lives below their means, maxes out their 401k match, avoids lifestyle inflation, and builds an emergency fund will end up wealthier than the person who makes twice as much but leases a BMW, rents a luxury apartment, and lives paycheck to paycheck at $200,000 a year. And here's the thing that should simultaneously depress you and motivate you. If you're watching this at 27 or 30 or even 35 and you've made these mistakes or you've lost time, but you haven't lost the war, the best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. Every day you delay fixing these decisions is another day of compound interest working against you instead of for you. So here's your action plan. Sit down this weekend, not Friday night when you're tired, but Saturday morning when you're fresh, and audit your financial life. Look at your car situation. Are you leasing? What would it cost to buy out the lease or buy a used car outright and eliminate the payment? Look at your housing. Are you renting something that's eating half your income? What would it take to move somewhere cheaper and save the difference? Check your 401k. Are you maxing out the employer match? If not, go into your HR portal right now and change your contribution percentage. Look at your last 3 raises. Where did that money go? If it all disappeared into lifestyle upgrades, decide today that the next raise is going straight into investments. And finally, look at your emergency fund. If you don't have one, build it. Cut everything you can cut until you have $1,000, then $5,000, then $10,000. This is your buffer against chaos. This is your freedom fund. The gap between people who build wealth and people who stay broke isn't intelligence or luck or family money. It's a series of small decisions made consistently over a decade. Deciding to buy instead of lease. Deciding to live below your means instead of at your means. Deciding to invest the raise instead of spend it. Deciding to build the foundation before swinging for the fences. These decisions are boring. They're not sexy. Nobody's going to applaud you for driving a 10-year-old Camry or living in a modest apartment. But in 10 years, when you have $300,000 in net worth and your peers are still renting and leasing and living paycheck to paycheck, you'll know it was worth it. And you know what's crazy? Once you hit that point, once you have real wealth built, you can afford the nice car and the nice apartment without it destroying your finances because you built the foundation first. The people who try to have the nice life at 25 are still trying to have it at 45 and failing. The people who sacrificed at 25 get to actually enjoy wealth at 35 and beyond. Delayed gratification isn't about never having nice things. It's about earning the right to have them without financial stress. If this video made you realize you've been making these mistakes and it's time to change course, share it with someone who needs to hear it. We don't talk about this stuff enough. We talk about side hustles and get-rich-quick schemes, but we don't talk about the boring foundational decisions that actually build wealth. Hit that subscribe button because we're going to keep breaking down these financial truths until everyone has the tools to win. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.